transmission, grease coating my fingers when the screen lit up with my wife's name. "I'm at John's house. Come pick me up or we're done." I stared at those words for a full minute, letting them sink in. 22 years of marriage, and it comes down to a text message at 2:30 in the morning from my best friend's house while his pregnant wife sleeps upstairs. My fingers still slick with transmission fluid, typed back without hesitation. "We're done then." The garage suddenly felt smaller, the fluorescent lights harsher. I could hear old Murphy's dog barking 3 houses down, probably at some raccoon digging through trash. Normal sounds of a normal night in our fading Midwest town. Except nothing was normal anymore. I screenshot the message, added the location pin she'd helpfully included, and sent it to John's wife Rebecca with a simple note. "Thought you should know where your husband is tonight." Then I sat back on my creeper and laughed. Not because it was funny. Nothing about this was funny. But because after months of suspicious late nights, mysterious phone calls, and finding lipstick on receipts that weren't mine, the truth finally decided to show up wearing a neon sign. Sarah, my wife of 22 years, was cheating on me with John Morrison, my best friend since high school. The same John who'd been my best man, who'd helped me build the deck on our house, who'd loaned me money when the shop was struggling. The same John whose wife Rebecca was 7 months pregnant with their second child. My phone buzzed again. "Sarah, please, Mike, I made a mistake. Don't do this." "Too late, sweetheart. Way too late." I rolled out from under the car and walked to the garage window. From here, I could see the lights of downtown, what was left of it anyway. Half the storefronts were empty, victims of the big box stores and online shopping. But John's hardware store was thriving somehow. Always had a knack for business, did John. Apparently, he had a knack for other things, too. Another buzz. "Mike, answer your phone. We need to talk." I turned the phone face down and went back to work. Mrs. Henderson needed her car by morning, and unlike some people in this town, I kept my promises. By 3 a.m., my phone had buzzed 17 more times. I counted, each message more desperate than the last. By 4 a.m., she was calling every 5 minutes. I let it ring. At 5:30, just as the sun was starting to peek over the horizon, I heard shouting from the direction of John's neighborhood. Even from 2 miles away, sound carried in our quiet town. I smiled and finished torquing the last bolt on Mrs. Henderson's transmission. My phone rang again. This time it was John. I answered on the 4th ring. "Morning, sunshine." "Mike, listen to me." "No, you listen to me, Johnny boy. You want to play house with my wife? Congratulations. But don't expect me to clean up the mess." "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been screwing my wife while your pregnant wife sleeps upstairs. Am I wrong?" Silence. "That's what I thought. How's Rebecca taking the news?" "You son of a—" "Careful, John. Wouldn't want to say something you'll regret. You've already done enough of that." I hung up and poured myself a coffee from the pot I kept in the garage office. Through the window, I could see lights coming on in houses across the neighborhood. People getting ready for work, starting their normal days. My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter Emma. "Dad, what's happening? Mom's not answering her phone and there's stuff all over Facebook about you and Mr. Morrison." Ah, Facebook, the town's gossip network, faster than any newspaper and twice as vicious. Rebecca must have shared my little care package with the world. Good for her. I texted back, "Your mother made some choices. Ask her about them." By 7 a.m., I had 12 missed calls from Sarah, 6 from John, and 1 from my mother-in-law. That last one I definitely wasn't returning. Margaret had never liked me anyway. Thought Sarah married beneath her when she picked a mechanic over the lawyer she'd been dating. The shop phone rang. My first customer of the day, probably. Mike's Auto Repair. "Mike, it's Tom Bradley. Listen, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to take my business elsewhere." Tom had been bringing his fleet of delivery trucks to me for 8 years. "Can I ask why?" "Come on, Mike. You know how it is. My wife, she doesn't think it's appropriate given the circumstances." "What circumstances would those be, Tom?" "The whole thing with John Morrison and your wife. People are talking. Let them talk. Look, I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't afford to get involved in this mess." He hung up. Within an hour, 3 more customers called to cancel appointments. By lunch, I'd lost half my regular business. I was beginning to understand the rules of this game. In a small town, when marriages explode, everyone picks sides. And apparently, the popular, successful hardware store owner with the pregnant wife trumped the grease monkey with the cheating spouse. Fine. If they wanted to play, I'd play. But I'd play to win. The rusty anchor hadn't changed in 30 years. Same cracked vinyl stools, same neon beer signs flickering in the windows. Same smell of stale cigarettes and broken dreams. It was 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, which meant the usual crowd of unemployed factory workers and retirees with nothing better to do. Perfect. I ordered a beer and sat at the end of the bar where I could see everyone and everyone could see me. Within 5 minutes, Bobby Kowalski sidled over. Bobby was the town's unofficial information broker, knew everyone's business, and wasn't shy about sharing it. Heard you're having some domestic troubles, Mike. Heard right. I took a sip of beer. Amazing how fast word travels in this town. Especially when it involves John Morrison. Guy's practically a saint around here. Sponsors the Little League, donates to the food bank, serves on the city council. Real pillar of the community, I agreed. Tell me, Bobby, what else do you know about our local saint? Bobby leaned closer, smelling like cheap cologne and cheaper whiskey. Well, since you asked, heard his store's not doing as well as everyone thinks. Been taking out loans, using the business as collateral. Rebecca doesn't know, of course. Interesting. Where'd you hear that? Lisa Chen works at the bank. She's been handling John's accounts for years, says he's been juggling payments, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Lisa Chen. I knew Lisa, we'd gone to high school together. She'd had a thing for John back then, before he chose Rebecca. Before Rebecca chose him over her family's money and expectations. Lisa still work at First National? Every day. Lunch break at noon, drinks here most Fridays after work. I finished my beer and left a 20 on the bar. Thanks for the conversation, Bobby. Anytime, Mike. And hey, sorry about Sarah. We all thought she was better than that. No, you didn't, I thought. You all thought I was lucky to land her in the first place. Outside, the afternoon sun felt harsh after the dim bar. I drove across town to the boxing gym where I'd been working out for the past 5 years. Danny Kowalski, Bobby's younger brother and the only member of that family worth knowing, ran the place. Heard you had a rough night, Danny said as I wrapped my hands. Rough week, rough month. Take your pick. Want to talk about it? Want to hit something instead? Danny nodded and held up that heavy bag. For the next hour, I pounded out my frustration on leather and sand. Every punch was for Sarah's lies, John's betrayal, the customers who'd abandoned me, the town that had already decided I was the villain in this story. When I was done, my knuckles were raw and my shirt was soaked with sweat, but my head was clearer than it had been in months. Feel better? Danny asked. Getting there. Danny, let me ask you something. If someone screwed you over, really screwed you over, how far would you go to get them back? Danny considered this while he cleaned up the gym. Depends on how bad they screwed me and how smart I was about getting even. What if you were real smart about it? Then I'd make sure they never saw it coming. That evening, I drove past John's house. His truck wasn't in the driveway, but Rebecca's minivan was. The house was dark except for one upstairs window, probably the nursery she'd been preparing for their second child. I felt a stab of guilt. Rebecca was innocent in this. She didn't deserve what John had done to her, what Sarah had helped him do. But guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. I texted back, adults don't cheat on their spouses with their best friends. Try your mother's trailer. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Margaret, my mother-in-law, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You bastard! How dare you throw my daughter out of her own house? It's my house, Margaret. My name on the deed, my money that paid for it. After everything she's done for you, put you through college, supported your little garage business. Little garage business that paid for her law school, you mean? She made one mistake. She made a choice. Now she gets to live with it. I hung up and turned off my phone. I had work to do. Lisa Chen was prettier than I remembered from high school. 38 looked good on her. Professional, confident, with the kind of sharp intelligence that came from surviving in a man's world. She was sitting alone at the Anchor's Corner booth when I walked in Friday evening. Mike Patterson, heard you were having a rough week. Getting rougher by the day. I slid into the booth across from her. Buy you another drink? Sure, whiskey sour. I signaled the bartender and ordered 2. So, Lisa, heard you've been keeping track of John Morrison's finances. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Bobby talks too much. Bobby says a lot of things. Question is, which ones are true? She studied me for a long moment. What do you want to know? Everything. Lisa pulled out her phone and scrolled through some files. John's hardware store is 3 months behind on loan payments. He's borrowed against the business, his house, even Rebecca's car. Total debt is pushing 400,000. I whistled low. That's a lot of hammers and nails. Gets worse. He's been forging Rebecca's signature on loan documents. She has no idea how deep in the hole they are. That's fraud. Sure is. But proving it would require someone to file a complaint, and Rebecca thinks her husband walks on water. What if she found out? About the money or about your wife? Both. Lisa's smile turned predatory. Then John Morrison would lose everything. His business, his house, his wife, his kids, probably end up in jail for fraud. I sipped my whiskey, thinking, you really hate him, don't you? John Morrison destroyed my career at the bank 5 years ago. Made up stories about me being unstable, unprofessional, cost me a promotion and nearly got me fired. All because I wouldn't sleep with him. He tried to. Oh, he did more than try, but I fought back and he made sure I paid for it. So yeah, I hate him. And if you're planning what I think you're planning, I want in. We talked for another hour, sharing information, planning strategy. By the time I left the Anchor, I had copies of John's loan documents, Rebecca's forged signatures, and a very motivated ally. The next morning, I started my campaign. First stop, the coffee shop where all the town's gossips gathered for their daily dose of caffeine and scandal. I made sure to sit where everyone could hear me talking on my phone. Yeah, Mom, I know it's hard to believe. 22 years of marriage down the drain because she couldn't keep her legs closed. What? Oh, it's been going on for months, maybe longer. You should see some of the text messages. No, I can't send them to you. They're too explicit. By noon, half the town thought they'd heard the juicy details of my wife's affair. By evening, the other half had heard even juicier details that I'd never actually shared. Next, I paid a visit to my lawyer, Dave Morrison. No relation to John, despite the name. Dave had handled my business contracts for years and owed me a few favors. I want to file for divorce, I told him, and I want to make sure I keep everything that's rightfully mine. What are we talking about, Mike? The house, the business, my tools, my truck, everything I owned before the marriage and everything I built during it. What about joint assets? What joint assets? She spent her money on clothes and vacations. I spent mine on building a life. Dave reviewed my financial records, shaking his head. Jesus, Mike, you really did pay for everything, didn't you? House, cars, even her law school loans. Every penny. And now she wants to take half of it to shack up with my ex-best friend. Well, the good news is, Indiana isn't a community property state. If you can prove she committed adultery and you've got evidence of her affair, oh, I've got evidence. That afternoon, I visited the bank where Lisa worked. She slipped me a manila envelope when no one was looking. Copies of everything, she whispered. Loan applications, forged signatures, payment histories, enough to bury him. What do you get out of this? Revenge is its own reward, but if John goes down, the bank will need someone to handle the foreclosure, someone who knows his accounts inside and out, and that someone would be you. Funny how things work out. That evening, I got a call from my son, Jake, away at college. Dad, what the heck is going on? Mom called me crying, saying you kicked her out and froze all the accounts. I didn't freeze anything. I just made sure she couldn't spend money that wasn't hers. She's your wife. She was my wife. Now she's John Morrison's problem. You can't just... Jake, let me explain something to you about marriage. It's a partnership built on trust. When one partner breaks that trust, the partnership dissolves. Your mother chose to dissolve our partnership. Now she gets to live with the consequences. But Mom said, your mother says a lot of things. Ask her about the text messages. Ask her about where she was at 2:30 last Tuesday morning. Ask her about the hotel receipts I found in her purse. Silence on the other end of the line. Dad, is it true? Is she really cheating? What do you think, son? More silence. Then, I think I need to call Emma and make sure she's okay. Good idea. And Jake, don't believe everything your mother tells you. She's not exactly a reliable narrator these days. By Sunday, my phone was ringing off the hook. Customers canceling appointments, friends taking sides, family members demanding explanations. I let it all go to voicemail. Instead, I spent the day at my computer creating social media accounts I'd never bothered with before. Time to drag this whole mess into the 21st century. Monday morning brought a knock on my door. Sarah stood on the porch looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed, her expensive clothes wrinkled. She'd been staying at her mother's trailer park, and it showed. Mike, please, can we talk? Talk away, you've got 5 minutes. Can I come in? It's my house, too. Was your house, now it's just mine. But I stepped aside and let her enter. She looked around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. You changed the locks. Among other things, coffee? Please. I poured 2 cups and handed her one. So, talk. I made a mistake. A huge, horrible mistake. But it's over now. John and I, we're done. I want to come home. Interesting timing. This wouldn't have anything to do with John's financial problems, would it? Her face went pale. What financial problems? Oh, you don't know. Your boyfriend is broke, Sarah. Worse than broke. He owes more money than he'll make in the next 5 years, and he's been forging his wife's signature to get loans. Rebecca's going to lose everything when this comes out. That's not possible. John's successful. His store is 3 months behind on payments and about to be foreclosed on. Didn't he mention that during your romantic evenings together? Sarah sat down hard on the couch. You're lying. I pulled out my phone and showed her photos of John's loan documents. Lisa Chen at the bank is very helpful when she wants to be. Lisa? That bitter old... Careful. Lisa's been very useful in helping me understand just how deep your boyfriend's problems go. Did you know he tried to assault her 5 years ago? Cost her a promotion when she wouldn't put out. John wouldn't. John would and John did, just like he did with you. Difference is, Lisa fought back. You just spread your legs. Sarah's coffee cup hit the floor, shattering on the hardwood. How can you say that to me? Easy. I open my mouth and words come out. 22 years of marriage, Sarah. 22 years, and you threw it away for a few months of cheap thrills with a married man whose wife is carrying his child. It wasn't cheap. I love him. You love the idea of him. The successful businessman, the pillar of the community. Too bad he's really just a broke, cheating fraud who's about to lose everything. I stood up and walked to the window. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign divorce papers giving me everything. The house, the business, the cars. In return, I won't press charges for the money you stole from our joint accounts. I didn't steal. $5,000 withdrawn from our savings account last month. Another $3,000 the month before. Want to guess what you spent it on? Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts for your boyfriend. That's theft, Sarah. Marital assets used for an extramarital affair. She was crying now. Ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Please, Mike, I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. You'll sign the papers. Today. Or tomorrow morning, I'm filing a criminal complaint for theft and sending copies of your text messages to every lawyer in town. Think your career will survive that kind of publicity? You bastard. I'm the bastard. I'm not the one who was screwing my best friend behind my spouse's back. She signed the papers. After Sarah left, I drove to John's hardware store. It was busy for a Monday afternoon. Customers browsing the aisles, employees helping with projects. John was at the customer service counter, putting on his usual show of small-town charm. He saw me coming, and his smile faltered. Mike, didn't expect to see you here. I'll bet. Got a minute to talk? Privately? He led me to his office in the back of the store. The walls were covered with photos of John receiving various community awards, shaking hands with local politicians, posing with Little League teams he'd sponsored. Look, Mike, about Sarah. Sarah's taken care of. Signed divorce papers this morning. She's all yours now, Johnny boy. He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, you won. Congratulations. You got the girl, broke up my marriage, cost me half my customers. You must be feeling pretty good about yourself. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How is it supposed to happen? You seduce my wife, I find out, and then what? I shake your hand and wish you well. John sat down behind his desk, suddenly looking older than his 43 years. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. And now you get to deal with the consequences. I pulled out a manila envelope and dropped it on his desk. Speaking of consequences, he opened the envelope and went white as he looked through the loan documents. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about them? These are private banking records. I can't what? Share them with Rebecca? Post them on Facebook? Send copies to the city council? You wouldn't. Try me. You destroyed my family, John. What makes you think I won't return the favor? I stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and John, you might want to check your truck when you leave tonight. Somebody might have put sugar in your gas tank. His face went from white to red. You son of a witch. Careful, Johnny. Wouldn't want to say something you'll regret. You've already done enough of that. I left him sitting there, staring at the evidence of his financial ruin. That evening, I was at the Rusty Anchor when John burst through the door, looking like a man on the edge. His truck had indeed suffered mysterious engine problems, and he'd had to walk 6 blocks in the rain. "You!" he shouted, pointing at me. "You ruined my truck!" The bar went quiet. Every eye was on us. "I don't know what you're talking about, John. I've been here all evening. Ask anyone." He charged across the room, but I was ready for him. 20 years of boxing training paid off as I sidestepped his clumsy rush and caught him with a right cross that sent him sprawling into a table full of beer bottles. The crash was spectacular. Glass everywhere, beer soaking into the carpet, John Morrison flat on his back with red streaming from his nose. "You want to take another swing?" I asked, standing over him. "Because I've got 22 years of marriage to work out on your face." He tried to get up, slipped in the beer, and went down again. The entire bar was laughing now. "Stay down, Johnny. You look better that way." I dropped a 50 on the bar to cover the damages and walked out, leaving John Morrison lying in a puddle of beer and broken glass, his reputation as shattered as the bottles around him. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Thursday. Rebecca Morrison sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Mike, is that you?" "It's me, Rebecca. What's wrong?" "John, he's gone. He took money from the store and ran. Left me a note saying he was sorry, that he couldn't face what was coming." I sat up in bed, instantly awake. "What do you mean, gone?" "His truck's missing. Half the cash from the store safe is gone, and there's a note on the kitchen table. He says the bank is going to foreclose, that we're going to lose everything." "Where are you now?" "Home. But I don't know for how long. Mike, I don't understand what's happening. Yesterday, everything was fine, and now—" "Rebecca, listen to me. Are you safe? Do you have somewhere to go?" "My sister in Chicago, maybe, but Mike, what am I going to tell the kids? How do I explain that their father is a thief and a coward?" I could have told her he was also an adulterer, but she'd suffered enough. "You tell them their father made some bad choices. That's all they need to know right now." After I hung up, I couldn't get back to sleep. John running away hadn't been part of the plan. I'd wanted him to face the consequences of his actions, not skip town like a coward. But maybe this was better. Rebecca would get the insurance money from his life insurance policy, assuming he didn't turn up alive somewhere. The kids would be better off without a father who was a cheat and a fraud. And Sarah would be left holding the bag for a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. The next morning, I drove to Margaret's trailer to see how my ex-wife was handling the news. I found Sarah sitting on the steps, still in her pajamas, looking like her world had ended. "Heard about John?" I said. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "He left me, just like you said he would. Actually, I thought he'd stick around for the criminal trial, didn't expect him to run. He left a note. Said he loved me but couldn't drag me down with him." She laughed bitterly. 22 years of marriage you threw away for him, and he couldn't even be bothered to say goodbye in person. "I didn't throw anything away, Sarah. You did." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I know I did. And now I've lost everything. My husband, my home, my career, my kids, all for a man who ran away the first time things got tough. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost." "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. Mom says I can stay here as long as I need to, but—" She gestured at the rundown trailer park around us. "This isn't exactly what I planned for my life." "Choices have consequences, Sarah. You made your choice." "I know. I never thought it would end like this." I left her there and drove to the bank, where Lisa was waiting with the final paperwork. "John's accounts are frozen," she said. "The store will go into foreclosure next week. Rebecca will lose the house within a month unless she can come up with $400,000. What about the criminal charges for the forged signatures?" "Rebecca would have to press charges, and she's not in any shape to make those kinds of decisions right now." "So John gets away with it. John's living in his truck somewhere, assuming he hasn't driven it off a bridge. I'd say he's paying for his crimes." That afternoon, I got a call from Dave Morrison, my lawyer. "Mike, we need to talk. Sarah's attorney is challenging the divorce settlement." "On what grounds?" "She's claiming duress. Says you threatened to destroy her career if she didn't sign." I gave her a choice: sign the papers or face the consequences of her actions. "That could be seen as coercion." "Then let's make sure it doesn't matter. I want you to file a civil suit against John Morrison for alienation of affection. Sarah's attorney can try to challenge our divorce settlement, but she can't challenge a jury award." Alienation of affection? Mike, that's a tough case to prove. I've got text messages, hotel receipts, and 20 witnesses who saw them together. How tough could it be? The civil suit hit the local newspaper like a bomb. Local mechanic sues missing hardware store owner for stealing wife. The story included enough details to make it clear that John Morrison hadn't just run away from financial problems. He'd run away from the wreckage of 2 families. Within a week, I had customers calling to apologize for abandoning me. Tom Bradley brought his delivery trucks back, along with a case of beer and a sheepish apology. "Didn't realize the whole story," he said. "Thought maybe you'd done something wrong. Now I see John Morrison was the problem all along." "John Morrison's gone, Tom. I'm still here." "Yeah, you are. And you're still the best mechanic in town." By the end of the month, my business was busier than it had been in years. Amazing how quickly public opinion could shift when all the facts came out. The hardware store sat empty, windows papered with foreclosure notices. Rebecca had moved to Chicago with her kids, leaving behind the house she'd thought would be her forever home. The bank had seized John's assets, but there wasn't enough to cover his debts. Sarah found a job at a law firm 2 towns over, making half what she'd made before. She was living in a 1-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop, driving a 10-year-old Honda, and learning what life looked like when you didn't have someone else paying for everything. As for me, I was doing just fine. 6 months after John Morrison disappeared, I was closing up the shop when a familiar truck pulled into the parking lot. My heart started pounding as I recognized the vehicle and the man getting out of it. John looked like heck. His hair was longer and grayer, his face gaunt, his clothes dirty and wrinkled. He'd lost at least 30 pounds and gained 10 years. "Hello, Mike." Well, look what the cat dragged in. Thought you were halfway to Mexico by now." "I was. Made it as far as Arizona before I realized I couldn't keep running." "So you came back to face the music. How noble." John looked around the shop, taking in the busy workspace, the full parking lot, the obvious signs of prosperity. "Looks like business is good. Better than ever. Funny how that works out. Mike, I came back to apologize, to try to make things right." "Make things right? You destroyed 2 families, stole $400,000, and ran away like a coward. What exactly are you planning to make right?" "I don't know, but I had to try." I walked over to my toolbox and pulled out a wrench, not to threaten him, just to have something to do with my hands. "You want to make things right, John? Here's how you do it. You turn yourself in to the police. You confess to the fraud, the theft, the forgery. You make sure Rebecca gets whatever money you've got left, and then you stay the heck away from my family." "I already lost Rebecca. Lost my kids, my business, everything." "Good, now you know how it feels." John was quiet for a long moment, then, "How's Sarah?" I laughed. "Sarah's learning what it's like to live in the real world. No husband to pay her bills, no fancy house, no expensive car. She's working for a 2-bit law firm in Millfield, making $30,000 a year and living in a dump above Tony's Pizza. Jesus. Yeah, Jesus. Amazing how fast your life can fall apart when you make stupid choices. Do you think she'd see me?" "I think you should ask her yourself. But John, don't expect a warm welcome. Sarah's discovered that love doesn't pay the rent." After John left, I called Lisa Chen. Guess who just showed up at my shop? "John Morrison? I heard he was back in town." "What's the word at the bank?" "They're going to press charges. Grand theft, fraud, forgery. He's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison." "And Rebecca?" "Still in Chicago. Won't talk to him, won't see him. Smart woman." That evening, I drove past Sarah's old apartment above the pizza shop. John's truck was parked outside. I could see 2 figures in the window, Sarah and John, probably having the conversation they should have had 6 months ago. I didn't stick around to see how it ended. I had better things to do. The next morning, I found out. Sarah called me, crying again. "He's going to prison, Mike. 5 years, maybe more." "Good. How can you say that? He's trying to make things right. He's trying to avoid the consequences of his actions. There's a difference. I still love him." "Then you're an even bigger fool than I thought." I hung up and went back to work. Mrs. Henderson needed her brakes fixed, and unlike some people, I kept my promises. 2 weeks later, John Morrison pleaded guilty to grand theft and fraud. The judge sentenced him to 7 years in state prison. Sarah attended the sentencing, sitting in the back row crying quietly as they led him away in handcuffs. I wasn't there. I was at work, doing what I'd always done, fixing things that were broken. But not everything could be fixed. Some things, once broken, stayed that way. Rebecca Morrison never came back to town. She remarried 2 years later, a pediatrician in Chicago who adopted her kids and gave them a stable home. I heard she was happy. Sarah never remarried. She spent the next 5 years visiting John in prison every month, waiting for a man who destroyed her life and shown no remorse for it. When he was finally released, he moved to Florida and never contacted her again. As for me, I rebuilt my life exactly the way I wanted it. The shop prospered, my kids forgave me for the divorce, and I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well while your enemies destroy themselves. But the real revenge, the perfect poetic revenge, came 3 years after John went to prison. I was at the Rusty Anchor, having a beer after work, when Lisa Chen walked in. She looked good, better than good, professional, confident, successful. "Buy a girl a drink?" she asked. "Whiskey sour? You remember." We talked for an hour, catching up on the years since John Morrison's trial. Lisa had been promoted to branch manager, bought a house on the good side of town, and was doing very well for herself. "You know what the best part is?" she said as we prepared to leave. "What's that?" "I bought John Morrison's hardware store at auction. Got it for pennies on the dollar. Renamed it Chen Hardware and Home Improvement." "You're kidding." "Nope. And business is booming. Turns out people like dealing with someone who's honest." We walked out to the parking lot together. Lisa's car was a new BMW. Success looked good on her. "Mike, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Do you ever regret it, the way everything went down?" I thought about it for a moment. "You know what I regret? I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. I regret wasting 22 years on a woman who threw it all away for a few cheap thrills. But do I regret fighting back when they tried to destroy me? Not for a second." "Good answer." She kissed me on the cheek and got in her car. As she drove away, I stood in the parking lot, looking up at the stars. John Morrison was in a Florida trailer park, working as a night security guard and drinking himself to sleep every night. Sarah was alone in her apartment, still waiting for a love that would never come back. Rebecca was happy in Chicago, with a man who deserved her. And me? I was exactly where I belonged. I got in my truck and drove home to the house I'd built, paid for, and kept. Tomorrow I'd get up and go to work at the business I'd built from nothing. I'd fix things that were broken and send people home with solutions to their problems. It was a good life, a life I'd earned. Some people might call what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as justice. John Morrison and Sarah made choices that destroyed 2 families. They paid the price for those choices. As for me, I didn't just survive their betrayal. I won.